Spider-Man Miles Morales was definitely one of the most pleasant surprises I've seen at the most recent PlayStation 5 reveal event, and it definitely took me by surprise to see it so early in the stream, and not just that, also seeing a really awesome teaser, some gameplay, but even more so, a release date that is actually so freaking soon. Holiday 2020 is going to be absolutely crazy in terms of entertainment. We are getting not just the PlayStation 5, but also some of the best lineups of games for a console that is just releasing, of course including this Spider-Man game as well. Now, one of the biggest questions that people were left raising following this reveal was, is this the actual Spider-Man 2 game that we've been waiting for on the PlayStation 5? Because if it is, it kind of feels a little bit too soon, and even more so, where is like Peter Parker and everything else that should have happened after the first one? Well, in the past 24 hours we've got a ton of clarifications of what this game is and what it isn't, so in this video I want to break everything down, including the trailer itself. So as always, let's jump right into it, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on it. By the way, if you want to win a free copy of Spider-Man on the PlayStation 5, I'm doing a giveaway for any 2020 release on any platform. The winner can choose both the game and the platform he or she is going to be playing on, and I'm also doing a second giveaway in partnership with Instant Gaming, so a huge shout out to them for actually making this possible, again for any game you want from their website over there. The winners are going to be announced both via the email addresses provided as well as here on this channel, so again check out the links down below as well as in the pinned comment. So just like many of us have said during the livestream event, of course the game didn't feel like it would be an actual sequel, and this didn't feel like this is Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5. And I even made this Twitter post right here as soon as the event was over, pretty much expressing my opinion on the facts, and we were already kinda thinking that this would be an actual standalone or at the very least some form of a DLC. Well, Sony as well as Insomniac Games actually came in with some clarifications, and no, this isn't going to be a DLC to the current PlayStation 4 version of Spider-Man. It is going to be a completely standalone game that's going to be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. It isn't going to be Spider-Man 2, it is something that kind of ties in the first game on the PlayStation 4 as well as the second game that's going to release sometimes later into the next generation. In one of the early interviews with Sony's vice president this Friday, he mentioned that, I guess you could call it an expansion and an enhancement to the previous game, which a lot of people thought would be him mentioning that this is in fact a DLC, since he mentioned the word expansion, which kind of implies that a little bit, but that is not entirely the case, and what he was referring to was the fact that the game is going to be more enhanced compared to the previous one to take advantage of the hardware behind the PlayStation 5. He even said there's a substantial Miles Morales component, which is the expansion element, but also within the game as well there's been major enhancements to the game and the game engine, obviously deploying some of the major PlayStation 5 technologies and features. But yeah, as I've said, this was later clarified, and even Bloomberg came in with this article and they have clarified that in truth Spider-Man Miles Morales is not an expansion or enhancement, but rather a new video game altogether. They have mentioned also drawing comparisons to Naughty Dog's Uncharted Lost Legacy, which was also a shorter game, was completely standalone compared to the previous Uncharted title and compared to the main series, and it also sold for much less. Instead of the standard $60 that it would sell, it sold for only $40. Later on we also had this Twitter post over from Insomniac Games, and they have also mentioned that Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales is the next adventure in the Marvel Spider-Man universe. We will reveal more about this standalone game at a future date. So these comparisons with like Uncharted Lost Legacy as well as like Infamous First Light, which were both standalone games, is exactly what's going to happen with Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PlayStation 5. So expect a much shorter story instead of the 40 hours that we had on the PS4 version a couple of years ago. It's probably going to be somewhere between 5 to 10 hours, give or take, just depends how long Insomniac Games have decided to make it, but I don't think it's going to exceed the 10-hour mark. And yeah, I think it's obvious why we are getting a standalone Spider-Man, and why Sony and Insomniac didn't want to wait for a Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5 next generation. It's because Sony really wants this generation to start really strong with a big lineup of first-party exclusives, one of which being this Spider-Man game, and it definitely makes sense. They want to sell that PlayStation 5 console very fast. It's the reason why I even doubted in the first place that this is even going to release on the PlayStation 4, and this is actually a really good strategy on their part. The more first-party games they are going to sell the PlayStation 5 with on launch day, holiday 2020, the more people are going to move over and the more people are going to convert to it. Furthermore, I think this goes without saying, but I'm going to mention it anyway, but don't expect a playable Peter Parker in this game. He is very likely to make some kind of a cameo, maybe even in person, maybe just with the voice. We can already see from the teaser that Peter Parker's voice can be heard, kind of passing on the teachings or having passed already the teachings onto Miles some time ago. At least that's what the teaser implies. And this also kind of confirms a few of those leaks that we had a few months ago with Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5, which in this case is Spider-Man Miles Morales, happening about 6 months after the events of the first one on the PlayStation 4. And they also mentioned the fact that it would be winter time, and yes, that's exactly what we saw in the trailer as well. So this is very likely that's the case. Of course, 6 months in the future. We started in summer on the PlayStation 4 version, and this time around it's winter already. Miles already having a bit of experience as Spider-Man, and he has already fought foes and kinda started getting the hang of being and becoming the Spider-Man. Anyway, one of the things that I find to be most exciting is the fact that the game is going to take advantage of the PlayStation 5 hardware capabilities. We already know of that tech demo from a couple of years ago where Sony showcased the previous Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, but using the power of the SSD tech behind the PlayStation 5. So I can only imagine how much greater the web swinging is going to feel, especially at the end of the pendulum, or even more so when doing a really big dive and catching a ton of speed and then like casting a zip line and swinging. That should be way faster because now we aren't restricted by the speeds of an HDD, and even more so from the speeds of the first PlayStation 4. So definitely looking forward to that, and it should be really awesome. But the other reason I'm also excited for the game is because we finally get to play a game where Miles is the main focus, and he definitely feels like such a contrast to Peter, and I mean like in his behavior and whatnot. He's definitely a bit more reckless, but I think at some point he's going to come to his senses. He also has his specific abilities that weren't explored too much in previous Spider-Man games. We saw two such abilities being showcased in the trailer. One of them is his signature like camouflage. He can basically turn invisible and hide from enemy sight, and I definitely want to see what types of layers of stealth gameplay Insomniac Games has added to the new Spider-Man game. Obviously the first one had some as well, especially in the starting parts where you would kind of go in these facilities, take enemies by surprise. You could still do it even in the end game, but it became less important since by the time you would like reach all of those crazy like abilities and even more so your tools, you wouldn't need them anymore. You could just jump in and take a bunch of enemies at the same time without having to worry, even on the hardest difficulty. And of course there's also his second signature ability, which is the Venom Strike. Basically he directs energy from the palm of his hands into the enemy to deal a ton of shock damage, and we can basically see two variants of this same ability being showcased in the trailer. One of them he appears to cast using only one of his arms, so it might be that this is a like lower damage version of it. It still deals and it's still useful, but it's not as potent as the second version that we saw later in the teaser, where he basically uses both of his arms to even charge in for a few seconds or at least milliseconds and then completely discharging it into the enemy with way more damage, to the point that it almost caused an explosion around that enemy, but it transitions to the next scene over there. Which brings us to the final note of those enemies. Who are the main foes, the main villains that Miles is going to fight in this new game right here? Because from what we've seen, it was quite different than what I was expecting. We don't really know exactly who these people even are. They do seem really awesome looking. I mean, those neons and the way like this character right here casts his weapon does look really awesome. They do appear to cause quite a lot of trouble both for the city as well as Miles himself. He appears to be knocked down in one of the scenes as this enemy approaches over there, and later on we also see this rescue sequence with Miles saving this person from a collapsing bridge, which by the way, this person kinda made me believe that this would be like MJ, I mean female with like red hair, but the hairstyle looks very different, so I doubt it's her, but it would also totally like make sense if it was her. Maybe she's going to be reintroduced in the game, also like maybe playable sections where she kind of still acts like the detective, but who knows, maybe yes, maybe not. I still think the main focus is on Miles, but it remains to be seen if that's gonna be the case. Nonetheless, really exciting news and really exciting months ahead. We're gonna get a ton of really awesome games, both for the PlayStation 5 as well as for the other platforms too, but definitely stay tuned if you want to see more of the upcoming Spider-Man game here on this channel. As always, if you enjoyed this video, also don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.